would be fair to say that the benefits of putting a solar panel system on a roof or on a property pretty well known to most people, and probably the only thing stopping them is whether they've got the finance or not to be able to do it when they want to. Generally speaking, most properties that have solar on are people that actually own the property, and they're the ones that get the benefit of the system. But what about landlords and tenants? In my view, I think if you put a solar system on a roof in that sort of situation, both the tenant and the landlord need to get a benefit to make it actually worthwhile. From the landlord perspective, they're probably looking at making sure they get a return on their investment. Generally speaking, in this sort of region, 6 to 8% return on investment is considered pretty good, and if you can get 10%, that would be probably, like a premium. And I think that's where they'll be looking at. From the tenant's perspective, well, the only way that the landlord can justify putting that system on is increasing the rent. And for the tenant to accept a rent increase, well, they need to see a benefit for themselves rather than just a simple transaction. So I think they need to see some sort of benefit from their point of view. From the landlord perspective, they need to retain their tenants to ensure that they continue to get a return on their investment. If they're going to invest on some solar panels, well, they need to at least match that return, and perhaps for taking the extra risk, get a little bit more. In this region, probably 6 to 8% return on investment is considered reasonably good, and if you can get 10%, that would represent the cream. For the tenant to agree to pay more rent, they would need to see some sort of benefit themselves, I think, just for taking that, to agree to do that. There'd be no point just saying, put a system on that will save me $15 a week if that's all that the system will produce. So I think they need to see some sort of return. So for example, if a landlord decided, well, I'll put a system up if I can get $15 a week rent, the tenant would need to receive at least that much as an extra saving to make it justifiable for them to take the risk to agreeing to that process. So if we take that example of a landlord wanting $15 a week rent, if you multiply that by 52, that's $780 a year that he would want to try and get as an increased income. Now, if that represented a 10% return on investment, it means basically he could afford to spend $7,800 on a solar system to actually generate that income. Now, using a quality LG panel system, you're looking probably around about 4 kilowatt system, and that sort of system will produce about 120 kilowatt hours a week. Now, of those 120 kilowatt hours, approximately 60% are used in basically covering general appliances or whatever, electrical items, lights, power, whatever, and the other 40% go back into the grid. And roughly speaking, to make the numbers easy for calculation, it's about 70 kilowatt hours that you consume and 50 kilowatt hours that go back into the grid. Now, if you use the current prices you can receive 21 cents as a feed-in tariff. For 50 kilowatt hours going in a week times 21 cents is $10.50 a week. Okay. Using the current base price for electricity, roughly 31 cents, if you multiply that out, that's about $21.70 a week. So the net saving in total of those two amounts is $32.20. So to my mind, if the landlord has $15 of that, the tenant's left with $17.20, and that should cover any seasonal variations and obviously how much usage he has during the week. So that's just a sample example, and obviously different size houses will have different size systems and the numbers will change a little bit, but the principle's the same. They do stack up. There is room for a landlord to get a good return on his investment and have a tenant that's going to be happier to have a reduced cost of living. So if you're a tenant and you want to find out what's required to reduce your power costs and to see what's a viable option in the place that you live, just give us a call at SolarWise Wagga.